Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Cat Sudoku. This is an adorable little roll and write from Tatewu. So here's Cat Sudoku, and it is a deceptively simple roll and write game that ends up being really thinky. If you've played Sudoku, you might have a sense of what we're doing, but I'm going to open up the box and explain. So in the box, you are going to have just some dice, which we're going to look at. I have no idea what this token does, but it's cute. It's a cat. We'll roll with it. There's only one page of rules, and then on the back, they are not in English. So you just get some simple rules, and then you get the little cat puzzles. There are 4 different ones, so I'm going to pull one of each sheet out so you can see them all. So here are all the puzzles that come in the box. There are only 4, and there's about 25 copies of each. So if you play this once and you think you're going to play it a lot, you can either laminate, or you can do what I did, which is just scan images. So if I really want to print another one off later, I could. And then you're going to need a pen. I like to live dangerously, so I often use a pen. But basically the way this game works is that you have 4 different little cat puzzles. They're so cute. They have their little cat art. And the spring puzzle is level 1. The summer and fall puzzles are level 2. And then you have winter at level 3. And in a Sudoku puzzle, basically you're filling out a grid and you're trying not to repeat numbers in the same row or column. In Cat Sudoku, you're basically doing the same thing, except the only available numbers are 1 through 6 because they're based on die rolls. So let's clear these adorable puzzles out, and we'll just look at the spring one for a bit. So here's our super cute little spring puzzle, and I'm going to use this one to just sort of teach the game. So there's a spot for your name. So exciting. And then the scoring stuff you need to know is basically over to the left. You start with 100 VP, and instead of earning victory points, you just lose them by messing up. So you lose 2 victory points each for the same numbers that are in the same row or column. And you also lose points for sets of diagonals. So if you've got 2s that are diagonal to each other, if there's only 2 of them, it's -2 victory points. If there are 3, it's -5. And if there are 4, it's -10. So be really careful about stacking those diagonals in an attempt to keep them off the rows. And then this others is basically for if you make a mistake. So if you're playing this multiplayer, you are supposed to make sure that you're filling in all the boxes, same as everybody else. So if you get off on your count, like you filled in too many boxes or too few, then you get a penalty per box. And then at the end of the game, you have somebody else look at your score sheet, or if you're doing solo, you do your best to grade yourself, and then you take off the total. So to actually play the game, there's just really easy setup. You basically start by rolling all the dice. 2, 2, 4, 4. That's great. But your first roll is used to kind of seed these little colored spaces down here at the bottom. The ones that kind of look like a little gate or like a little short dude with little arms. So I have 2 2s and 2 4s, and I would have to figure out how to put them in here that's going to cause me minimal trouble. One thing that's nice about this game is that these little gaps mean that if I have a 2 here and a 2 here later, it does not count as being on the same column. 2 of the same number across this gap would also not count as being on the same row. But this is still diagonal. So when you're scoring yourself, that's basically what you need to be aware of. So let's say I want to put a 2 here. I'll put one like here. Let's put the 4 here. And I'll put another 4 here. So my little sheet is seated. I've got some numbers in. And then the rest of the game proceeds in a really, really simple way. So if you're playing with multiple people, you take turns rolling the dice. But since it's just me, I'll roll the dice. And I got a 2, a 3, a 2, and a 2. So this actually works out great because at the beginning of each turn, you get to choose a wild. So, for example, I'm going to say that 2s with 2+ totals are going to be wild this round, which means that my 3 I have to put, but then I can put 3 of any number I want anywhere because that's what I chose as the wild. So let's say that I actually just want to do 3, and then I can do 6, 5, and 1. Because these are all wild. And I've got one row totally filled out with all the different numbers. And maybe I think that that's the most beneficial for me for now. So there are a couple tricks about wild. Wilds, basically no matter how many of the same thing you roll. So, this says 2+, and I checked it off. All 3 of these 2s are still wild. If I checked off the 1, all 3 of the 2s would still be wild. The trick is that I had to roll at least 2 results in order to check off this box and make 2s wild. So every time you roll a double, you might want to check off that wild box, and then you have some options down here because you're only going to have so many opportunities to roll the doubles that you need to get the wilds that you need. The other thing is that it's funny because at the beginning of the game, you have all this wide open spaces to declare things wild and, whatever rolls, it's fine, whatever happens, because you're just filling stuff in. Then towards the end of the game, it gets extremely tense what's going to be wild because depending on how you filled in your board, there's certain rolls you really, really want to avoid. And you can actually end up, I tend to build my board in from bottom to top, and then I end up panicking when I really don't need a 4 because I put too many or something up here this corner, and then I roll 1. Oops. So you're trying to make sure that you're filling in this whole chart in a way that is going to not repeat numbers. So basically every turn I would just roll and fill stuff in and just repeat until all the boxes are full. I would check for anything that I have missed along the way and deduct my points. And then the end result is my score. And that's how you play Cat Sudoku. Very, very simple. And yet, strangely brain burning. All right, so now for some final thoughts. How did I feel about Cat Sudoku? Well, generally my feelings about this game are very positive. I personally have found it puzzly and enjoyable. It's such a simple premise, but because I like Sudoku and I like trying to plan where the numbers will go, I got a huge kick out of trying to plan for potential future die rolls, and then of course not always having it go very well while playing this game. And this is also a game that was a crowd pleaser with other people. So my students really liked it. I played it with some students. One of whom just whooped me at it. Wow. And then I also played it at game night as like a little filler because somebody couldn't stay for very long. And we all had a really, really good time. The game is visually pleasing. The game is easy to understand. And, you basically just roll your dice and go. There's very little overhead. And there's, I think, a lot to be said about that. Cat Sudoku is one of those games that if you just want to play something and think a little bit but not be overly stressed, it's a fantastic option. And I think that's exactly what a little roll and write ought to be. So it's definitely doing its job. That said, I do think there are some things to quibble with. The main one is that grading it at the end and trying to spot all of your mistakes is a giant pain in the butt. I personally try to circle any mistakes that I catch along the way, but of course you never catch any of your own mistakes. That's why you made them. So when you were doing this with other people and you're checking each other's work, it's awful to check. And then when you're trying to check your own, it's still awful, and you might miss something because of your own biases and your own feelings about how you filled out the sheet. So scoring it, I'm not actually sure that any of the scores I've given myself are accurate because I'm always worried that I missed something. But I guess I feel like that's also not really the point. It's a very engaging game, so you're going to be really focused on the play. And then once you're done, you just scored as best you can and keep moving. The other thing about this one is that it kind of rides the line between activity and game, and I don't necessarily see it as a problem. I found this engaging, it's puzzly, it's amusing, but if you're looking for something that has, very clever, intense mechanisms, or that is going to, have a surprise in it that's a real showstopper, that's actually really not this game. This is one of those games where you're going to get entertainment out of it for what it is, and then you're going to be done. And so I personally don't mind that at all. But if you're looking for something that's got a little more to hold on to, then Cat Sudoku may not be for you. The other thing I noticed about it that I'm not sure is a complaint, it just depends on your play style, is that there are only about 25 of each sheet in the game. So there are very limited numbers of each puzzle in that box. And so the spring puzzle, which is the one that you're going to use to introduce people to the game for the most part, is going to run out really, really fast. That's something that I'm already noticing. The ones that I'll play solo, playing each of these puzzles 25 times actually sounds like something I will never do. But if I'm playing it with other people, then you run out of sheets really quickly. I took a scan of all of them, but honestly, I kind of feel like this game is a novelty, and it's going to be one that I want to pop out every so often. It's not going to be one that I'm going to aggressively play through. So maybe it's not a bad thing that the puzzle sheets are limited. It's at least sensible in terms of most people's real play habits. What I may end up doing ultimately is just playing through all of these puzzles and then feeling like I'm done with the game, even though I have scans. So I'm not really sure how that part's going to turn out, but that's how it is. Anyway, Cat Sudoku is a quick, very easy to pick up and play little roll and write that I think is definitely pleasing if you're just looking for a quick thing to do that's going to engage your mind, that has just a little bit of strategy to it, but not too much, and that will, keep you and maybe some other people entertained for a short period of time on game night. Overall, I'd say that probably means it's successful in its purpose. Even if it's not one for the ages, it's still very fun. I'm very glad that I bought it and spent some time with it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, maybe support me on Patreon, and most of all, happy gaming.